Dattatreya, the God, the generator, the operator, and the destroyer, all in one form. Generating, operating, destroying. So these are the three gunas in our creation, the three qualities of the energy of our world, of our universe, you could say. And the Dattatreya character is unusual in the sense that he is an embodiment of all three. There are often divine beings will come who have into a form, like an avatar or something, who will be like a Brahma character. They'll be very generative and they'll have access to a lot of knowledge, not only past knowledge, but also future, like the future astrologies. Whereas the Vishnu characters, we'll talk about each of these characters at length, but the Vishnu characters are generally the illusion character, like the Vishnu, who is an operator, operating the illusion of the planet, the ups and downs, the polar opposites, the health, the wealth, the romances, the attachments, and the lack of health and the lack of wealth, and the relative ups and downs of the emotional illusions in the world. The destroyer, the Shiva character, is destroying the illusion. When the rug gets pulled out from under our feet and everything seems to crumble, that is the Shiva. Destroying the attachments, destroying the very things that have seemed to keep us in this world. The big losses, the big wipeouts, the big heartbreaks and disappointments, those are coming from the destroying. So typically a divine character will come as one of these kinds of energy, predominant. The Dattatreya figures are unusual that they embody all three at once. So I'm going to start off with the Guru mantra, the Ganesh mantra, and the Gayatri, just to get us in the vein of the gurus, and then we'll talk about Dattatreya at length. Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwaraha, Guru Sakshat Parabrahmam, Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. Om Shuklam Bharataram Vishnum Sashivaranam Chaturbhujam Prasannavaranam Dhyaye Sarvavighnopashantaye Aghajanana Padmarakam Gajanana Maharanisham Anekadantanam Bhaktanam Yekadantam Upasamahe Yekadantam Upasamahe. Om Bhura Bhuva Suvah Tatsavitur Varenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yo Nah Prachodayat. Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. So, Dattatreya, the generating, the operating, the destroying, the God in one form. You'll see him depicted like this with the three heads, signifying these three different characters. And I'll talk about some of the inner energy of Dattatreya and each of these three characters individually, how they come together to form this one magic character we call Dattatreya. So Datta, I mentioned he's Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva. And why this matters is that individually, none of these three characters can understand the totality of Mother Divine. Dattatreya is an expert with the Mother, and we'll talk about that as we go through this as well. But the gist of it is, because each one has their function and their station as generating, as operating, and destroying, they really cannot singly grasp her totality. They only know their own station. They only know their own lane, you could say. And so, of necessity, the three have to merge into one in order to understand her. So, I should also mention that Dattatreya himself is the primordial guru, the first teacher of humanity about anything divine. And it is true that all religions, all paths, all sampradayas, all schools of divine information on this planet originate from Dattatreya. They all go back to Dattatreya. He is the primordial teacher, the first guru, the first instructor of our planet. He has, because he is so thoroughly divine, and yet he has incarnated in human forms, he has one foot in both sides of the equation, one foot in the celestial consciousness and another foot completely in the world of this illusion. So he's the natural bridge to help the human beings come through the illusion and regain the high consciousness. So Brahma character generating. Brahma is usually characterized by four heads, signifying each of the four directions, signifying each of the four Vedas, the books of knowledge that explain the blueprint of our creation. The Brahma characters are usually, they're like, they know the future astrologies. Nostradamus, the, guy who made all the prophecies about our planet, was a kind of Brahma character. There was an equivalent of him in India called Veerabrahmendra, who wrote future histories down in a palm leaf book that the Indian government actually has, because he told all kinds of things. He incarnated also in the 1600s, Veerabrahmendra, and he talked about atomic warfare, he talked about air flight, he talked about different countries coming up economically for the next several hundred years on the planet. The Brahma nature is like that. They have huge knowledge. In the epic stories of India, it is Brahma who emerges from the navel of Mahavishnu. Lakshmi is massaging Vishnu's feet, and Vishnu kind of like spontaneously gives birth to the generator. So he's depicted in a lot of different ways. Generally, he'll have like a manuscript, a palm leaf manuscript in his hand, signifying all the knowledge. And also sometimes a mala, to be counting repetitions of mantras to be able to regain the knowledge and the understanding. It's Brahma who makes all the souls. He generates all of the souls in this planet, no matter what kind of soul it is, be it a plant, an animal, an insect, a bird, a human life. It's Brahma who is generating. So you could say generating the illusion as a soul fits into a particular form. He's a generator. And it's a funny thing that Brahma himself, he doesn't know how he generates. He just generates. He doesn't have the knowledge of it. There are not very many temples to Brahma. There's an ancient story that he got cursed by the gods because he pissed off the wrong person. And the statement was, well, then fine, no one's ever going to worship you. You don't get to have temples. You don't get to have, a public persona in the way that some of the deities in India do, including very much the operator and very much the destroyer. Nope, very few Brahma temples. And I think it's interesting that because he is so linked with the generating consciousness, that happens in the deep silence, that happens in the inner void. That generating, that inspiration, that creation energy, it doesn't happen in a public way. It's an interior, inside knowing. And it's interesting to me that the outward expression of Brahma in our planet is very much like that. He's kind of hidden away. He doesn't get temples. He doesn't get overt worship. It's not, And yet, without Brahma, without this quality in our creation, nothing would get generated. None of us would be here. And there would be no way back to the consciousness. This is a very interesting drawing. There was an episode where the Brahma energy encountered Krishna as a boy and bows to Krishna, the operator. more Brahma with his wife Saraswati. She is the knowledge mother. She's the one who understands how things operate as the Shakti, as the embodied energy in motion of the Brahma consciousness. Different scenes of Brahma. Just to give you a feeling, like when you see this character who has multiple heads and he's male, it's usually Brahma. Generating. Always generating. And I think this is one of the only Brahma temples in India. I think it's in North India somewhere. And even you can see like the deity is kind of dark and interior and sort of hidden in that way. That quality in us is like that as well. So that's a little bit about Brahma. Vishnu, the operator. Vishnu, where Brahma is kind of held back and private, if you will, Mahavishnu is incredibly expressed in myriad forms throughout human time cycles and human histories. The operator completely could not be more different from the generator. The operator he's always shown very luxurious, dressed in gold. The Vishnu quality is linked with the sun. So all of that blazing, beautiful, light and abundance and like that. A lot of gold jewelry around Mahavishnu. Balancing the creation, spinning the illusions of wealth, health, security, stability, relationships, romance. That is the nature of Mahavishnu. And also balancing the creation in a certain way when it does go a little bit off the rails with the attachments. But majority, he's like the big luxury, irresistible character. Dreaming all the worlds into existence, dreaming all the planets and all the human souls, different leelas, the plays, the circumstances of all of our lives. It's all in the hands of Mahavishnu. Celestially beautiful. And linked to the sun. In fact, in the Vedic tradition, they will say Surya himself is an emanation of the Vishnu energy. It's said that Vishnu created the sun. And how he did that had to do with his intense and direct relationship with Mother Divine. He's drawing on the creation capacity of the mother, on the womb chakra and the heart of the mother, in order to operate the illusion in a luxurious and irresistible and miraculous way. A lot of the miracle powers, a lot of the divine ability to bend the reality of the creation is coming via the Vishnu energy, coming from the miraculous qualities that are embedded and flowing through the sun. Ram. So in the Vedic tradition, I don't know how much people are familiar with it, but they talk about different time cycles on the human planet that have been rotating these 4 major time cycles for millions of years. Our last major 4 go-rounds with this in more recent human history, so we're talking maybe like 50 or 80,000 years worth of our history versus millions and millions of years, include these 4 yugas that keep cycling. And the yugas go from time cycles that are 100% divinity, 100% pure consciousness, called Sat Yuga. Sat also means like the truth. So in the 100% divine time, there isn't much that happens because everything is consciousness. There are subtle forms, they're all divine, but there's no friction. When there's no friction, there's no movement. When there's no movement, there's no development, there's no story, there's no growth of any kind. So that 100% divine time cycle ends, and the next time cycle that comes is called Tret Yuga. And Tret Yuga is 75% divinity, 25% negativity. If you had like a chair with 4 legs, if that were the truth or the dharma or the integrity of divine, in the Treta Yuga, one of those legs of the chair is missing. It's only standing on 3 legs. That is the yuga of Ram in our last several go-rounds with these time cycles. And the story of Rama, which I'll talk about in a minute, is the script of the Treta Yuga. So it's interesting that Ram himself, he is an avatar of the Vishnu energy, and he is tasked with being the upholder of the Dharma, or the divine order of things, the divine reality, the divine integrity, which is pretty hard when there's already 25% negativity. And in the story of Rama, his wife Sita gets kidnapped by a demon and is held hostage for many, many years, which finally results in a big war happening between all the good forces and the demon army to get Sita back. This is the story of that whole yuga, and it's also one of the major scriptures of the Vedic tradition in India called the Ramayana. It's the whole story of Rama's time. That was 75% divinity, and still there was a demon running amok, caused a bunch of trouble, and a big war. Then that yuga ends, and the next yuga is Dvipara or Dwapara Yuga, and that yuga is the yuga of Krishna. I think many people know that name. Krishna is another Vishnu avatar who presides over the 50% negativity, 50% positivity. And we'll talk about him in a minute as we get there. But in that time cycle, which is the last one that preceded ours, 50%, 50%. And it's a giant war between the forces of good and the forces of the darkness. And it's a mess. Then that yuga ends and we come to this yuga, Kali Yuga, which begins with our recorded history 5,000 years back. And Kali Yuga is 75% negativity, 25% divinity, which is why so much of what happens in this yuga is so wrong and grotesque and corrupt and misguided. So for each of the yugas, there is a major Vishnu avatar who comes and sort of like presides over it. And we'll talk about these different avatars in these time cycles as we talk about the Vishnu energies. So the first of them is Rama. And Ram, as I said, is the Lord of Dharma. He's the Lord of, like, he has to preside over keeping the divine order, even though it requires a lot of sacrifice on his part, and it's kind of unhappy. His whole story is very unhappy. But he is the Vishnu avatar tasked with that role in the planet. So this is Rama and Sita. This is Ram, Sita, his wife, Lakshmana, his brother, and Hanuman, his half-brother. And they all play in their roles in the story of the Ramayana. More scenes of them all. And that yuga was a very divine time when humans were more connected to divinity. There were miracle energies flowing through people. There was telepathy. It was a very subtle and high energetic, high consciousness time on the planet, despite being 25% negative. I think it's what people in other traditions refer to as Lemuria. It was that time cycle of deep connectedness to the divine. And still, it's a big drama that plays out, and there's a big crash, right? There's a big war with this crazy demon who kidnaps Sita. So it always has to play out in the field of the illusion, like what is the best for the whole creation, and how can the karmas be helped along by the Vishnu avatars who are simply doing their best to balance the whole creation and keep the illusion kind of running at the same time. So in Rama's yuga, all of the divines wanted to merge with him. In fact, many of the great rishis and great consciousness figures took forms just to be around Rama because he was so irresistibly beautiful as an emanation of Mahavishnu. And many of these beings tried to literally merge with him, like they all wanted to have sex with him. And Ram said, well, yeah, in this lifetime, my dharma is I have one wife. I'm completely focused on that. I'm faithful to that. But next lifetime, I'm coming as Krishna. And I will take care of you then. Take a number and incarnate again with me. And you can merge with me physically in this realm to be in the enlightenment channels. So he comes the next yuga. So the Tret Yuga ends. There's a period of what they call pralaya, where there's a big washing of the planet, usually like big floods, where most of the people are wiped out and there are a few beings left, and then the stage gets reset, and then we're in another time cycle. Noah's flood back in the biblical times was a kind of pralaya, a partial pralaya. It's like a scene change, in theater. So then Krishna comes as the next big Vishnu avatar. And he goes through many phases in his existence. As a child, he's very mischievous. As a young man, he's a flute-playing Gopala. He's a cowherd, herding the cows of the senses. And he is surrounded by all his gopikas, the beautiful cow milkmaids, who are, it's said there are 16,000 of them who are his girlfriends simultaneously. The chief among them was Radha. And Radha, she's a very interesting story. She's actually married to somebody, but she and Krishna have this incredible romance. It is said of the gopikas, the 16,000 simultaneous girlfriends, that he would appear to all of them simultaneously. And many of them were great rishis and other figures who, in the previous incarnation as Ram, really wanted to merge with him, that energy. So they came in the next cycle to be able to do that physically. But it's said that he would appear to all of them simultaneously, and if any one of them wanted to be his one and only, jealous of the others, then he wouldn't show up to her. He's playing a very deep game with these souls, and it's also of note that there are, the numbers differ. Sometimes they say 16,000 girlfriends, sometimes they say 72,000, which is the number of the nadis, the subtle nerve points in the human system. So on the metaphysical level, it's the Krishna energy that's purifying out the whole karmic system of the human structure through his Leela, his big love romance with Radha and with all the gopikas, who are his pure devotees. They're also kind of like his soulmates. He's responsible for their enlightenment. It's said anybody who saw his form, anybody who heard his flute, irresistibly connected to God. They could not resist the pull and the attraction and the beauty of Krishna. So these Vishnu avatars are a big doorway to the Godhead, even though they're in the illusion form, playing out the romances, playing out the operating in the illusion. Swami Kaleshwar would say the operator is your best friend. Of all three of these, the operator, because they're operating the illusion, they're always throwing us in the different situations, helping us grind out our crazy karmas so that we can recognize our true divine nature and act accordingly. Krishna, as you know, this is the depiction from the Yogananda SRF lineage. He's a backbone of that lineage of gurus, with good reason. The operators are very, very dear friend. These are some of the phases that come later after he's with all the gopikas. Krishna goes on to preside over the big war in the Mahabharata, which is the whole epic story of that. His cousins, the 5 Pandava brothers, of whom Arjuna is the middle, are great warriors. They're princes, and their kingdom gets stolen by their 101 cousins, who refuse to give back the kingdom later, even though that was the agreement. And so it's a giant war. Krishna presides over that war on the side of the 5 brothers, the 5 Pandavas, who are the 5 elements in the human system: the earth, the fire, the akash, the sky, the water, and the air. And it's a big battle between these 5 brothers and their 101 counterparts, the Kauravas, their cousins, who are the blocks, the emotional negative qualities in the human system. all of these epic stories and all the stories of these time cycles involve histories that actually occurred on the planet, number one, metaphors or archetypes of how energy operates in all of us, and then like a literal map of how the consciousness operates simultaneously. So this is when they were going into battle, blowing their conscience to go into the big war that kind of ends the whole Mahabharata. And for those who know the Bhagavad Gita, that happens on the battlefield, the epic, tiny little volume of brilliant Vedic wisdom that is one of the major scriptures of India, and one of the, I would say, the holiest books on our planet in terms of divine truth. So what happens is Arjuna, who is the greatest warrior, he's been trained that way. He is extraordinary. As they're about to, their forces are arrayed opposite on the battlefield, and they're about to start the big fight. And Arjuna looks at all of his cousins on the other side of the battlefield, and even some of his mentors. Like his first archery guru is arrayed on the side of the Kauravas. And Arjuna is thinking, oh my God, but I'm going to kill all these people. I'm a great warrior. That's what I do. And he chokes. He can't do it. To kill his family members and his mentors and all these people. Just, oh my God. So he just kind of paralyzes on the battlefield. And Krishna, who is his chariot driver, Arjuna doesn't even realize who Krishna is, really. None of them do. Krishna comes over and says, hey man, what's going on? And Arjuna says, I can't do it. And this is why. These are my family members, you know, these are my mentors. I'm going to kill them all. And I can't. And at that point, Krishna morphs into, shows his true form as Mahavishnu. They say in the Gita, blazing with the light of 1,000 suns. And he has all of the faces of the divinity. And he gives the message, the song of God, the Bhagavad Gita, to Arjuna on the battlefield. Some of the essence of which is, do your duty. Do your duty. You were trained as a warrior. It is your dharma to do that. But all of this is a dream of God. All of these characters are only God. And no one ever lived and no one ever died. So you do your duty, you surrender the results to the God's hands, which is where it belongs. And kind of that's it. I mean, the Gita is much more than that, but that's kind of the essence of the Gita. At which point Arjuna, who was just like stunned to see this, 50-foot golden, all the faces of the divine giving these incredible messages to him, is just crying and begging Krishna to just come back into his form again. It's too much to see all this high divinity like that. And so finally Krishna does. And Arjuna, armed with the depth of the understanding that's been conveyed to him, indeed they do go into battle, and yeah, they do kill a lot of people. And in that process, so many are liberated as souls because of this play of God, this script of the story of the Mahabharata, which is all coming from the Vishnu avatars. That's the nature of the Vishnu. It keeps the story going and in the process helps liberate a lot of souls from the karmic wheels. Really powerful. There is another form of Vishnu who is a fierce form known as Narasimha. Narasimha is half lion, half man. And his story, in short, he's a fierce angle of Vishnu. Vishnu usually is very flowing and melodious and loving and golden and abundant. But when he has to turn fierce to help change the illusion, you could say, he'll incarnate like that. And so there's a story of a small child named Bhakta Prahlada who is a son of a demon emperor and his wife. And while Bhakta Prahlada is in his mother's womb, there is a great saint called Narada, who is a Vishnu saint, who keeps coming to the mother every day and telling to the baby inside the womb the stories of Vishnu and the stories of Krishna, the exploits and the greatness of Krishna. And when that child comes out from his mother's womb, he comes out as a Vishnu devotee, even though he is a demon child. And his father, the demon child's father, is a king whose brother was killed by a Vishnu devotee, and he has sworn a vendetta against all Vishnu devotees, and he has dedicated his life to going and killing all of them. Well, his own son is yelling, Vishnu, Vishnu, Krishna, Krishna, all the time. And the father can't take it. He's horrified that his son is like that. He keeps trying to kill the son. And of course, it never works because Vishnu always steps in to help at the last minute. So at this point, the father, who had gotten a boon from some form of God, that he could not be killed by male or female, animal or human, in daytime or nighttime, inside or outside a building. He got this boon, so he's made himself invincible, which helps him in his quest to run around and kill all the Vishnu devotees. Anyway, the king, Hiranyakashipu, he figures he's pretty well covered his bases, right? He can't be killed by any of these things, so it kind of makes him invincible, right? At one point, he's so angry with his boy, and the boy is just incessantly screaming about how great Vishnu is. Vishnu, Vishnu, Krishna, Krishna. The father gets so angry and he says, all right, where is your Krishna anyway? Where is this Vishnu that you're always yelling about? And the boy points to a pillar in their castle and says, well, he's right there. And out of the pillar comes this fierce form of Mahavishnu, Nara Simha. Nara is a man, Simha is a lion. Well, Narasimha, neither man nor animal, neither male nor female. The Vishnu energy can flip into any form. It can be male, it can be female, it can go any which way. He goes into a huge battle with Hiranyakashipu, the king, and finally kills the king by ripping his intestines open, like literally disemboweling him. And Narasimha takes the bowels of Hiranyakashipu and wears them around his neck like a garland, seriously. And what Swami Kaleshwar said was Narasimha played the mantras of the creation on the intestines of the dying Hiranyakashipu, who only says thank you in the end for being liberated by this fierce form of Vishnu. And you can see little Bhakta Prahlada here is trying to put a garland on his on his Vishnu while his father is being disemboweled in front of him. That negativity that Hiranyakashipu embodied, the anti-Vishnu, being resolved by this Narasimha. Narasimha is important because he is the favorite form of Vishnu of Dattatreya. And there's in Hampi, ancient temple town, ruined temple town in South India, in Karnataka state, there's this remarkable Narasimha statue, huge Narasimha that was constructed in the 1600s by a local emperor who was also a saint, a holy consciousness person. And we used to, just to give you an idea of scale, he's massive. Swami Kaleshwar used to send us all the time to that Narasimha to take his blessing and to receive the energy and the transmission from this Narasimha. There's Swami Kaleshwar himself with Narasimha. He's really powerful. So this fierce Vishnu is also in the mix. That's Jonathan and me back in 2011, I think, with our whole group there in front of Narasimha. Right, so he's like this outlier amongst the Vishnu avatars, very fierce, very able to operate the illusion of the creation by balancing it, but in a very fierce way. He's kind of like Kali, but he's still a Vishnu. Which brings us to our time cycle today. And our time cycle now, in the Kali Yuga, which began 5,000 years ago with the death of Krishna, then starts the next time cycle, where it's 75% negativity. And the Vishnu avatar on our planet now is this character called Venkateshvara, or Balaji. And the story with Balaji is he's standing in a temple at a place called Tirupati. Tirupati is the most trafficked holy site on our planet, more than the Vatican. Over 1 million people a year go there. Back 20 years ago when I was there, On an off day, there were about 30,000 people in line. There were generally about 50,000 a day. Nowadays, there's like 100,000 people a day go through this temple to stand in front of this deity for about 2 seconds, if you're lucky. And he was a human being named Venkateshwara. He was a saint. He was an incarnation of Vishnu who had married a woman that he owed from his lifetime as Rama to marry. And his wife Lakshmi in the celestial got word that her husband Vishnu was down there married to another woman, got very jealous, and she incarnated as well, became a second wife to this character Venkateshwara. Now he has 2 wives, and the 2 wives are arguing over him all the time. And he got so sick of the bickering of the feminine that he just stood back and turned himself to stone some thousands of years ago, and was largely standing there in the kind of jungle in the wilderness for thousands of years, holding down the dharma of the planet as a Vishnu character, but in a statue form. Nobody carved the statue. He literally turned himself to stone. This is a photograph. They don't allow photographs anymore. This is a photograph from like the 1950s. In the 1600s, an emperor, the same one who built that Narasimha in Hampi, stumbled on this statue in the jungle, realized its import, and built a whole temple complex around this Venkateshwara, or as he's called, Balaji. And Swami Kaleshwar used to go in there quite often for several hours at a time. Usually, if you go just as a normal visitor to the temple, you only see him for like 2 seconds. And you're in a line with like 50,000 people. It's a scene. But he would say, you know, people think he's a statue, but if you touch him, he's flesh. At night, they put food for him, for Venkateshwara. In the morning, he has crumbs on the side of his face and a huge smile, and all the food is gone. He's a real character and is helping to operate and balance the illusion on our planet. They keep the eye shades over his eyes. These are different depictions of him. They keep the eye shades over his eyes because it is said if they were to remove the shades completely, everything that is negative in this planet would turn instantly to ash, which is 75% of the manifest creations. So they keep his eyes covered. There is one time of the year where they lift the shades slightly. The TM Guru Maharishi Mahesh Yogi went in to visit with Balaji during that time, and they had to carry him out. He was in such a bliss consciousness, he just lost normal consciousness. So just to say, so these are different depictions of Balaji. This is how he looks in popular art and iconography. So should you be traveling in India and you see these kinds of posters and art, you know, oh, that's that Venkateshwara. He is the Vishnu avatar of our time cycle. And his wife, of course, is Lakshmi. Where he's getting the power is from his wife, as is true of all the male characters. They always get it from the feminine. The link with the Mother Divine is so strong and allows them to bless and operate and play in the illusion realm because of her, drawing on her power. So this is what Tirupati looks like. It is true, Swami Kaleshwar said, every saint in this time cycle, in our last 5,000 years, should stand in front of him at least once. Should see him with your 2 eyes. He's up on the top of these 7 hills that represent the 7-headed cobra who sits behind Mahavishnu as a protector. And it's quite a drive to get up there. There are 52 hairpin turns, 52, 5 plus 2 is 7, that take you up. If you go up in a bus or a vehicle, it's a little bit harrowing to get up there. Normal pilgrims for thousands of years have walked up the side of the hill. There are stairs. It takes several hours, but people do it. This is the complex itself. Balaji himself is standing under this golden dome. And so they have like all these like caged areas, with the metal barriers, kind of like an amusement park lines where you snake through the lines and snake through the lines and snake through the lines, and it's 12 people deep and they're all shouting, Govinda, Govinda, Govinda! As everybody's very excited, and they've been in line for hours and hours and hours and hours and hours. We took a group there in February of this year, and we were in line, I think, for about 2.5, 3 hours, which is pretty short given the givens in Tirupati. So he stands right under this golden dome. And it's gold plated, literally gold. This is the wealthiest temple in the world. People give everything they have, all their money, their jewelry, everything to Mahavishnu. He is the ultimate deal maker. And whatever they're asking for, a good marriage for a child, a relative to come out of the hospital, to heal a physical illness, to launch a business successfully, whatever it is that they're asking him, usually the material things are the purview of Mahavishnu, then he extracts a lot of dakshina, a lot of donation in exchange to balance the energy of what he is giving, to balance the karmas of the blessing that he's giving to someone that they're asking for. So it is the wealthiest temple in the world. It is the most trafficked place. Everybody knows they're going to get this darshan of Vishnu in form to bless their lives. I've been there twice this year, really unusual. This was a smaller group of us went and got a special darshan in July of this year. Special darshan, which wasn't possible for a group of 45 people before, is you come up really close to him. When we had the more public darshan, I would say we were about 20 feet from him, which is plenty. Even just being up there, it's enough. But we got the more special darshan where you actually go in. I think you're about fewer than 10 feet from him. And then as you stand in front of him for a few seconds, which seems like an eternity, then the line, they help you out, but you're still walking backwards. So you're still seeing him for the whole duration of walking out of that temple. It is a blast of energy, unparalleled on this planet, I have to say. Tirupati is an extraordinary place, and you generally don't see Western people there. So we are a bit of an anomaly strolling around Tirupati there. This is what it looks like on a festival day. I mean, the sea of humanity is extraordinary. And why so many millions and millions and millions of people are magnetized there? He was standing out in the jungle for thousands of years, largely unnoticed, except by the saints. It has to do with the Sri Chakra, with the structure of mother's womb energy. That is the map of all of Mahalakshmi and all of the abundance and all of the blessing, both spiritual and material, in this form, this yantra that was put in many of the great temples in India by the saint Adi Shankaracharya, who was a great, great saint some thousands of years ago. And Shankaracharya put a Sri Chakra right at the feet of Venkateshwara. Her structure is magnetizing all the people there. He's giving the overt blessing. He's like the front man. But she is the thing that magnetizes everyone. The Sri Chakra, when it sees you, starts to take a snapshot of your soul and blesses your energy. You'll see it in major temples in India, major power places in India. Generally, it doesn't matter if you see it. It's more important that she sees you through the structure of the Sri Chakra. But she is the technology about why so many gajillions of people come every year to visit with Venkateshwara. It's a Shakti. It's a power of the mother mechanism, which characterizes all of the Dattatreya characters strongly, but none so obvious, I would say, as in the Vishnu characters. So once again, this is the famous photo from the 1950s, the last time they really allowed a photo in there of Venkateshwara. It's very interesting, he's covered in gold and gems and everything that helps radiate the energy of what he is. Also, on Fridays, his energy is totally Lakshmi, and it's the only temple in India with a male deity where they do female ceremonies, female pujas on Fridays, which is Lakshmi Day. So, like in true Vishnu style, he can be any form, any gender, anything in this illusion creation. Very powerful place. If you have the chance to go to Tirupati, it's quite an experience. Another statement from Swami Kaleshwar is that Jesus himself, back in his lifetime in India, took a procession of thousands of saints from Penakonda. I guess they walked, which is quite a stretch. But anyway, they went to Tirupati up on those hills and got the darshan. They got to see and stand in front of Venkateshwara to get his blessing. For spiritual people, he has a certain energy that our souls need in order to operate at the highest level on this planet. Normal people go there majority for material transactions, but for us, it's a whole different ballgame. Which brings us to Shiva, the Destroyer. So what is he really destroying? He's destroying the illusions. You know, it's so funny. Vishnu operates the illusions, makes them all bigger and more glorious and so attached and so in the relative world with the money making and the relationships and the family ties and the, you know, the health and all these things that are part of the blessing of our material creation to each of us. And it's Shiva who kicks the legs out from under all of that. It's Shiva who crosses the waves. It's Shiva who pulls the what do you say, like the structure of our attachments one by one by one by one, pulls them off. The wipeouts, the losses, the why did this happen to me? The tragedies, the catastrophes, they're coming from the Shiva energy. Not in a malicious way, they're coming out of love to help us wake up to the larger reality of what it means to be alive in this planet and what we really came to do here in the consciousness, which is not to be all embroiled in the material, physical illusions. Shiva, he's depicted like he's sitting in the cremation grounds. That's his favorite place, where the bodies are burning. At the end of the line, the last refuge of the soul is Shiva. When you die, first you go to Shiva for several days. He's sitting covered in the ash of the burning bodies of the cremation ground. He's covered with cobras, Mother Divine's Kundalini Shakti. He has Ganga, the Mother Divine as the river Ganges, pouring out of his head to cool him down. He is the complete consciousness master. He's always in his meditation. Always in his meditation. And Shiva is the one who has the third eye as a gift from Mother Divine, so that he can discern when she is real and when she's playing illusion. He's an ascetic. Shiva is a total renunciate. He just has a loincloth and his malas, and he's sitting out there with pretty much nothing. Always meditating on upholding all of the souls in the creation. All of the souls. That means the human souls, the animals, the plants, the this and that, the subtle forms, the negative spirits, people who have died tragically and are stuck in between the worlds, the angels also, all the divine souls, like all of the souls in this whole creation are under the umbrella, you could say, under the protection and under the care of Shiva. This is Mount Kailash in the Himalayas, which is a sacred mountain to many different world religions of the area. It's considered the largest Shiva lingam in the world. Whereas most of the Himalayan peaks are very sharp, Kailash is kind of blunted. And Kailash is the home of Shiva and Shakti. When he's not in the cremation grounds, this is where he's hanging out. That's a really good shot of Kailash. You can see it's like almost domed. And people who make pilgrimage up there, it's pretty high altitude. The idea is you get up to a certain level and then you make pradakshina, you make circumambulation around the top of the mountain to get the real strong blessing of Shiva. People die like trying to get up there. It's kind of not a joke. Um, Shiva and Shakti together, of course. His wife is the beautiful form of Mother Divine called Parvati. But when she is in her fierce aspect, she's like Kali or Durga, destroying the negativity, destroying the illusions, destroying the craziness of the human beings that we keep putting into this creation over and over again, forcing her to incarnate like us, wielding the destroying aspect of Shiva, but in a female form, coming to rebalance the creation by destroying a lot of the negative aspects of it. Shiva, covered in animal skin. He's got his begging bowl. His drum here is a damaruka, dum 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 dum, the two-sided drum that beats out the heartbeat of the planet. Dum 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 dum. He's a very, very powerful, highly needed aspect of our creation, and the Shiva's blessing to everybody. This is a 60-foot Shiva statue. He's seated in a temple in Bangalore in India, in Karnataka state. It's an outdoor temple. Lovely place to go, actually. Beautiful place to be and meditate. But he's in his big silent, seated meditative form there. This is with his wife Shakti. With their son Ganesha, the remover of obstacles. Big story there. The family all together. Ganesha in our system is the root chakra. He's also the closest soul to the Mother Divine. She made him by herself. And there's a big story where Shiva comes to try to meet with the mother, and she's posted the little Ganesha outside her door while she takes her bath. And Shiva doesn't recognize that this child is his because he had nothing to do with the creation of Ganesha. Big problem. Anyway, Ganesha is the root chakra in our system, and their other son, Muruga, is the third eye in our system. So it's very interesting. If we look at the structure of the human form, our left side belongs to the mother, the right side belongs to the father. Shiva on the right, Shakti on the left. Ganesha is the root chakra, the base of our nature, where the obstacles are created, and then when they are removed, then one can have the liberated consciousness, you could say, internally. Muruga is the function of the third eye, the clarity, the discernment, the ability to burn negativity, a big fire burning at the third eye. So it's like the North Pole, the South Pole, the East and West in the human structure. And why I'm mentioning this is because Swami Kaleshwar back in the day, he had a lot of objects that Jesus himself had carried during his life. Jesus, again, top Dattatreya avatar in our planet. And this was a solid ruby. It's more than would fit in one hand. It's a solid piece of ruby that was carved with Shiva on one side. Behind him is Shakti, the mother. And then on one side is Ganesha, and on one side is Lord Muruga. The soul structure of what a human form is was put into this rock. And Jesus himself carried this throughout his lifetime. Swami had it in Penukonda, and then now it's in Germany, in the hands of one of Swami's very dear students who is able to wield this Jesus energy very strongly for the benefit of the planet. So this is the flip side with the mother shown. So what we just saw was the back, Shiva and the cobras, Ganesha on this side, and Muruga on this side. Super powerful. Again, here's what the depictions in like modern poster art look like of this holy family, which is really a map of our own energy system. Shiva giving darshan to Ram back in the 2 yugas ago. Shiva drinking the poison at the beginning of this creation. There's a big story about that. I think I probably shouldn't go into that too much, or should I? So, in brief, at the beginning of the creation, when it was just the subtle forms of deities kind of floating around in the consciousness, Mahavishnu came to the gods and said, hey guys, you should churn this primordial ocean of milk that is the consciousness of the creation. And in the churning, you will get this thing called amruta, the nectar of immortality. Nectar of immortality means it's like a honey-like substance that flows from the gods, and if they taste it, they will become immortal. Well, so the gods think this is a great idea. They get the Mount Meru, the giant mountain at the center of the creation that symbolizes the whole chakra system in the human form. They get the cobra, the Sheshnag, the main kundalini energy of the whole planet, the serpent, to be the lever attached to this mountain so that they can spin it and they can churn the ocean of milk. And once they have this all set up, they realize suddenly the gods are too weak. They're in subtle forms. They're so divine, they don't have enough strength to churn this ocean. So they have to enlist their negative counterparts, the demons, to help them. And the demons are all brawn and not much else. So the demons, being promised half of the Amruta, the nectar of immortality, sorry, in exchange for doing this churning, sign on immediately. And so they start the churning and the churning. And what comes up first is not the Amruta. What comes up first is this horrible burning poison called Alahala. The Alahala is spreading out, and it's threatening to destroy the entirety, all the creation, all the forms, everybody. And none of the gods can touch it. Nobody can handle this Alahala until finally Shiva comes and says, I got it. Shiva drinks the poison, the Alahala, this burning, corrosive poison, which is the accrued karmas that have been unpaid of the previous time cycles. It's a burning in his throat. It is Mother Divine in a fiery illusion form there. And Shiva suddenly is terrified. He gets this illusion on him from the mother. He thinks, well, if I swallow this, then I will die. That means no one will ever get the enlightenment through me. Shiva is the only really enlightened character in our entire universe. He thinks if I spit it out, it will destroy the manifest creation. What to do? Oh my gosh. So he just holds it in his throat. And it's so burning, it turns his throat blue. Frequently, you'll see depictions of Shiva with just his throat is a blue energy. He's holding the poison there. Indirectly, it's telling us what is the real function of the throat chakra. It is where we process and dissolve the negative karmas of people that we take care of. That's what Shiva is doing there. So once he has drunk the Alahala, then the churning continues, and all these divine things come up out of the ocean of milk. Finally, the Amruta comes up. And the Amruta is given to the gods. You can see the churning here going on. And not to the demons. It's a big story how that all happens. But that Alahala capacity of Shiva, Swami Kaleshwar had a very powerful Shiva lingam called the Alahala lingam. It's there in his hands. He pulled it out in, the late 2000s, I think 2007 or 8, and showed it to us all for the first time. He had it since he was 18 years old. It was given to him in a darshan with Mother Divine. He never said anything about it or anything until he was probably about 33, maybe 34. Suddenly he pulls out this lingam, and when you would shake it, you could hear the liquid in it, the ancient Alahala in this Shiva lingam. He said millions of years old. It was Shiva's soul object. It was kept in the oceans for millions of years. And then Mother would have it in the hands of different saints in our history, like the Buddha had this Alahala lingam. Adi Shankaracharya had this Alahala lingam. Jesus had this Alahala lingam. Like it went saint to saint. Many of them had it in their possession. Before Swami Kaleshwar, the last person who had it was Mahavatar Babaji. And Swami deployed this Alahala lingam very skillfully in Penukonda. It's now buried 9 feet under the ground in a sacred place there. But there were a few different times where the students got to interact with it. powerfully. We got to hold it, we got to shake it, and we got to put it to our third eye. And he said, you know, when you hear it shaken like that, all of the karmas that you have had since the beginning of your soul's incarnation are dissolved, done, finished. Very, very powerful. So Shiva's way of drinking that alahala is an active principle today and is going on in Penukonda for everybody. So what happened in the Vishnu drinks the alahala, then they get the amruta, and then the gods are like, uh-oh, we have a problem because we don't want to give the amruta to the demons. They suddenly realize it's a really bad idea if the demons are immortal. It's not good. What to do? And they're trying to figure out how to renege on this deal without being horrible about it, when Vishnu steps in and says, I got this. And Vishnu turns into a female, a beautiful, sexy girl named Moini. This is Moini. This is Vishnu. You can see the Vishnu energy through her. In the illusion, everyone is so convinced that this is a beautiful woman that they forget it's Vishnu. So the gods on this side are all getting the amruta, whereas the demons, every time she comes to a demon to give them amruta, she kind of like shakes her body and they get so excited that they get distracted and she skips them and they don't realize that they didn't get the amruta. This is the illusion of Vishnu balancing the creation. There's another shot of Moini, who's really Vishnu, giving the amruta and not giving it to the demons. Demons are left out. The gods get it, the demons don't. And unfortunately, this is Swami Kaleshwar in the early 2000s. He manifested with the help of two women students, my colleagues, this amruta lingam. The amruta lingam literally emits amruta, this honey-like substance that is the nectar of immortality. And this is when it was first created out of a pile of river sand. This amruta lingam, when he had it turned on, it would emit so much amruta that it would cover the floor in this room, which is about, 13 by 15 maybe, within a few hours. And we would scrape it up and bottle it and use it, take it every day, and also use it for healing. That amruta has brought dead birds back to life. It's done remarkable healings. Swami's comment was that amruta lingam sits on his tomb. And he said in the future years on this planet that it would be emitting amruta. Anyone who would taste that amruta would get enlightenment on the spot, wouldn't have to do spiritual practice. So far that hasn't happened yet physically, but this is the amruta lingam sitting on the tomb of Swami Kaleshwar now. And it is positioned approximately where his heart would be on his body. He said this amruta lingam is like a character who will be helping this planet for about 1,000 years in a very high divine way. So the plot thickens that Shiva, after Moini has given all the amruta to the gods and not to the demons, and is still Moini, hasn't turned back into Vishnu yet, Shiva forgets that Moini is Vishnu. He just forgets because the illusion. Vishnu is the illusion guy, and he has this overwhelming desire to have sex with Moini, and they have an affair. And Shiva, she gets pregnant and actually births a child called Ayappa. Then the two of them are back in their male forms, and they're kind of sheepish because they had this affair, and now they have this child, and neither can take it to their wives. And so they leave the child Ayappa to be raised in the jungle by rishis. And Ayappa actually is the Brahma consciousness. He is the generating consciousness. He is an avatar of the Brahma energy that can bless any soul, the highest awareness. So it's an interesting dynamic. We have the operator, Vishnu, merging with the destroyer, Shiva. And in their merging, they create the generator. It's a very mystical process, how this occurs. Shiva at one point gets so frustrated, because he's a destroyer, as I was saying at the beginning, the individual strands of these characters in the Datta formation, they can't understand the totality of Mother Divine. And Shiva gets very upset at one point that he cannot understand the generating. He doesn't understand. How does she do that? Where does she generate from? What is this generating? I'm always destroying. The souls come to me when they die. I'm destroying their attachments. He's like the bad news guy for everybody. You had a fortune and now you have a total wipeout. You've lost everything. That's at Shiva's door. You know, you had your health, but now you don't. And when we die, Shiva is the last refuge of our souls. So he's like, okay, I know my department, but how is this generating happening? And he's so upset, he can't figure it out. He just starts dancing and dancing and dancing. He's so furious. He can't figure out what to do. So he's in his form as Nataraj, covered with fire, stomping on the earth. His dreadlocks are flying. And everybody's very nervous because they're like, he's going to destroy the whole creation if he keeps doing this. And they say to Mother Divine, you got to stop him. You have to calm him down. And she's like, yeah, right. Like I have any sway with him. They're like, you have to calm him down. So finally, Shiva gets so burnt out from dancing and dancing and dancing that he's just sitting in the cremation grounds, eating his food out of a skull cup and grouchy, just sulking like a big baby, you know. And Mother comes to him, and she comes in a very kind of particularly fierce form that can sit in the cremation grounds in a way that matches his energy. She does not come as a luxury lady in her normal, beautiful, flowing form. And Shiva is so grouchy. He's sitting there eyeing her suspiciously and says, what are you here for? What do you want? And she says, I want to make love with you. And Shiva says, here in the cremation grounds, the bodies are burning, the stench, the muscles falling off bone. I mean, it's a creepy place, right? And she says, of course. Where else? So Shiva and Mother actually have the first union in the cremation grounds. In the place where the death is happening comes this generating. And in that union, she shows him her womb energy and how the generating occurs, how she creates. So Shiva finally understands he has to link to the mother to get that. Independently, he cannot understand that. Normally in our world, when we see Shiva, he's depicted by the Shiva Lingam, the egg-shaped stone that is the infinity. Like you can't tell where it begins or it ends. If you see him in form, like sitting with the covered in ash with the cobras and everything, usually it means you've died. So usually we worship the Shiva Lingam, the beginning of the energy, the spark of the creation. And so in many temples in India, that's how you see Shiva depicted. Sometimes you'll see him as a statue, yeah. But majority of the time you see the Shiva Lingam there. This is an extremely powerful Shiva Lingam in Penukonda. You notice that there are a lot of Shiva Lingams in Penukonda. What Swami Kaleshwar put there, building the structure of Shiva very strongly in order to attract the mother in a particular way with a lot of protection around her. One of the most brilliant forms of Shiva is Ardhanarishvara. Ardhanarishvara is half Shiva, half Shakti. And this is really the reality of the Shiva energy. Half mother, half father. This is also the reality of all of us. I was saying that before. Left side is mother, right side is Shiva. I'm just giving you all the flavor of the Shiva aspect of things, and then we'll tie it all together into Dattatreya. And Shiva giving his big blessing. Okay. So Dattatreya, back to this guy. And this is actually the marble statue that's down in that Shiva cave in Penukonda, where that very powerful Shiva lingam is. 2,000-year-old lingam. Generating, operating, destroying, all three in one. Who is this Dattatreya? So he's holding the knowledge generating quality of the Brahma. He's holding the absolutely irresistible web of desires, attachments, material blessing coming from Mahavishnu, and he's holding the destroying aspect of Shiva. And also that link to the mother and her creation ability is also embedded and implied in Dattatreya. So we're back to this God, this generating, operating, destroying character, who, in the words of Swami Kaleshwar, is the right character to bend the energy of the mother very easily in this world. When you see the Dattatreya avatars, they're generally miracle-wielding saints. Part of how they are able to do that is that they're cycling these three qualities, the three gunas in the creation. They play it back in the mirror of nature so skillfully to Mother Divine that even she is confused. They're like using her building blocks in this creation, but reflecting it backwards to her. Why? To confuse her Maya side, to get the pure knowledge from Mother, and then to hand that to human beings. This is the nature of Dattatreya. So Mother with her 3 kids, right? And yet Dattatreya, when they come 3 in 1, is the expert on Mother Divine. Swami Kaleshwar's comment, Mother has no idea how brilliant it is that she put Dattatreya in charge of this whole time cycle in human evolution. They are deeply linked to the Mother. This is the 3 of them independently worshiping the Mother. When they come together, they can begin to understand her totality. It's the only way a human structure can understand the totality of the Mother. It has to have all 3 of these qualities cycling in it in order to grasp her, which is why they are the experts on her. There they all are, blessing Rama and Sita getting married. You see them up in the celestial, Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva. They're implied in the great avatars in our planet who have come to bring the enlightenment. Over and over and over again, we see Dattatreya saints. The story of Dattatreya himself, how he came around, in brief, is there was a rishi named Atri, whose name is in Dattatreya. Usually when you have a divine soul who's created, the name of the rishi who is implied in their creation is somewhere embedded in the name, especially true of forms of mother. So Dattatreya, his father is Atri, his mother is an incredible rishini, female rishi named Anasuya. And Anasuya literally means beyond jealousy. She is not a jealous. There's no jealous cell in her form. She's a great rishini. On behalf of one of her devotees, she actually stopped the sun from shining for several weeks. She's a powerhouse. And lest you're wondering, all the rishis are married, by the by. Of course, because the males get their consciousness capacity by drawing on the womb chakra of their wives. So anyway, Anasuya, she's so pure and unjealous, untouched by that the 3 goddesses, the wives of Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva, get very jealous of Anasuya, and they decide to play a horrible prank on her. And the prank is they send their 3 husbands. They dispatch Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva on this mission to mess with this pure Rishini Anasuya. And the deal is they show up at her door, and in the Vedic tradition of India, whenever you have a guest at your door, the guest is God. And whatever they ask you for, you have to give. Because they are like God has come to your door. Well, in this case, it's literally 3 gods have come to her door. And Anasuya is so thankful and overwhelmed to see Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva standing at her door. And she says, well, what can I do for you? And they say, instructed by their jealous wives, we want you to strip totally naked and feed us dinner. Which is, horrible to impugn a woman's virtue and to try to humiliate and shame her like that. Anasuya, being so brilliant, she grasps the entire thing here. And she says, oh, of course, of course. And she turns each one of them into an infant. Little baby Brahma, little baby Vishnu, little baby Shiva. You can see the three little babies there. Then she takes off all of her clothes and she breastfeeds them. Because to a baby, there's no shame in nakedness, right? So then that episode is finished. Then these little babies are kind of crawling around her home. Then her husband comes home, Atri, after meditating all day. He immediately sizes up the situation and says, oh, this is brilliant, but I think maybe you want to restore these guys to their forms. And around that time, the three goddesses whose husbands haven't come home after doing this prank, they're getting nervous. So they come to Anasuya's house looking for their husbands. And they say, where are our husbands? We've come to find them. And she says, yeah, sure. Grab them if you can tell which one is yours. These little toddlers crawling around the floor drooling. So the goddesses are outsmarted and they are embarrassed. And Atri says, okay, bring them back. So this, again, adult Brahma, adult Vishnu, adult Shiva. And they are so impressed with Anasuya's capacity, her divine purity, that each one of them offers her a boon. And she says, well, I want a child with each of your energies. From Shiva, she gets Durvasas, a grumpy rishi who plays a role in a lot of stories. From Brahma, she gets Chandra, the moon. And from Mahavishnu, she gets Dattatreya. So Dattatreya is born through a leela of the goddesses, working out their own jealousy blocks, trying to, through his mother, Anasuya. Yes, birth of Dattatreya. Three goddesses coming, trying to claim their children, her little babies. But the underlying thing is each of these separate energies wants to understand the full range of the mother, and they cannot as an individual character. They have to merge into three, the three into one, to come to really grasp her. So Dattatreya actually incarnated in our world, and no, he didn't have three visible heads. He's surrounded by 4 dogs, which are widely thought to be the Vedas, which is kind of a commentary on, it's not a nice commentary on the Vedas. The blueprint of creation is subject to him. And the cow, the wish-fulfilling cow, Kamadhenu. And he carries the attributes of all 3 of those very different characters of the generator, the operator, and the destroyer. So Dattatreya's nature is that he knows how to play the illusion back on the mother so skillfully to get her pure truth, which is not easy with her. As we know, she's a big illusion lady. She's a big Mahamaya. She's a big confusing illusion, throwing us more and more into the illusion so that we stay in the karmas and we stay in the lifetimes and the incarnations and don't get out of her Maya. But Dattatreya is the one who's come to pull us out of her Maya. So the way he does this is very interesting. He begins acting out horribly. He's sitting in the cremation grounds like Shiva on the dead bodies, surrounded by beautiful women like Vishnu, eating all the forbidden things. He's chowing down on meat, throwing the bones. He's drinking alcohol. He's stoned on ganja like Shiva. And he's outrageous in his behavior. Outrageous. Drunk and stoned and womanizing and all this stuff. Playing with all the things that are supposed to be forbidden to the divine characters in the strict interpretations of that. And Mother herself is absolutely livid with this perfect divine character behaving like a frat boy, acting out so outrageous that she comes furious to him. Furious. Fierce form of mother, like a Kali. And Datta's genius is he knows exactly how to cool her down. He's deliberately upsetting her. He deliberately pisses her off by behaving in this crazy, outrageous way. And it is a hallmark of the Dattatreya saints that they tend to behave in a rather outrageous fashion. Not at all in the norms of human behavior or even normal human values. They tend to break all the rules, and they're really larger than life, and they are a little bit hard to handle because they're so unpredictable. Anyway, so she comes so angry at his outrageous behavior. He cools her down because he's a genius. And she is so peaceful in his hands that she gives him whatever he wants. And what Dattatreya wants from her is the knowledge of how a soul is generated, how a soul is created. Because if you know how a soul is created, then you can create souls to be divine. You can create souls that are awake. You can create souls that are liberated. But unless you understand the mechanism of how a soul is created, the illusion goes on. Well, she gives that information to Dattatreya, and all the other gods and holy souls and rishis and everybody, they're all upset. They're all like, well, but why'd you give that to him? We've all done our meditations. We've stayed in the boundaries. We've observed good behavior. We've stayed, pious and pure and all this stuff. And you don't give us that. But to him, you give that. Why? And the response is because he's a squeaky wheel. And in his outrageous behavior, playing back to her the qualities of this creation, and then knowing how to cool her down, calm her down. He's an expert on the mother. He knows how to stimulate her fury and her illusion level, and then how to extract the reality from her. And that's why he is the primordial guru, the first teacher, the origin of every spiritual path and religious path in our planet, whether they know it or they don't know it. Everything goes back to Dattatreya. He is the original guru. It is said even he is the guru of Shiva. He is a genius with the mother. And so we see this. It's very interesting about Dattatreya, his own guru, are 24 forces in nature. You could say Mother Divine is his actual guru, but expressed through different aspects of her creation. The first 5 gurus he has are the 5 elements: the earth, the fire, the sky, the water, the air. The second set of gurus are the sun and the moon. And then it goes through all kinds of different animals, birds, insects, that all teach him something of the nature of spirituality. For example, one of his teachers is the python. And what Dattatreya apparently learns from the python is that after you receive an enormous amount of energy, in the way that the python eats its prey and then takes a long time to bask and digest, that there's a digesting period of receiving the energy. That's as important as doing the practice to gain that energy in the first place. So each thing is teaching him a different aspect of this creation. And finally, there are 4 individuals, a baby, a pure young woman, a virgin, a blacksmith, and a prostitute. Very interesting. These are the teachers, the gurus of Dattatreya, sent by Mother to show him different aspects of the creation and thereby of himself, his own consciousness. From the child, he learns pure innocence. From the maiden, he learns virtue. From the blacksmith, he learns single point of focus. When you're wielding very hot metal and you have to strike it exactly right, you don't want to mess up. And from the prostitute, he learns pure detachment. So even Datta's guru is plural, is Mother. He comes from the Mother, he learns through the Mother, and then he is able to wield his unique understanding of the creation back on the Mother to get her reality things for the human beings. There are many not saints, N-A-T-H, who are also rather wild incarnations of saints. There are famously like 9 major not saints incarnations who are sacred to Dattatreya. One of them is our major guru, Shirdi Sai Baba. He is a not saint. So you often see these 9 knots depicted around Dattatreya. Shirdi Baba being one of the most famous of the not incarnations. Baba, there are 2 pure Dattatreya avatars in our modern human history. And Dattatreya only shows up in this time cycle, by the way, in the 75% negative time cycle. He is like a big avatar in this in this yuga. We really need a character who's capable and comfortable with the negativity to steer us back through to the purity and the divinity. He is uniquely suited to that. Shirdi Baba, pure Dattatreya avatar, like 90% Datta. The other avatar in our modern history who is that strong a Dattatreya saint is Jesus. Many saints have a piece of Dattatreya energy. Ramana Maharshi had like maybe 10-15%. Bhagavan Nityananda, the guru of Muktananda, had maybe like 10% Dattatreya, and he was pretty wild. But for a really strong, pure Datta avatar, that would be Shirdi Sai Baba and Jesus. And it's interesting that there's a lot of early Renaissance and pre-Renaissance iconography of Jesus showing three faces. They think it's the Trinity, you know, Father, Son, Holy Ghost, whatever. But I would also offer that showing Jesus with three faces is really coming close to his Datta nature. So I found a lot of these interesting art pieces that had Christ depicted in three faces. Just to drive home the point that he is really a very strong Dattatreya avatar, even with 6 hands like we see on Datta. So it's an interesting thing to think that Christianity goes back to, of course, Dattatreya. Buddhism goes back to Dattatreya. The nature worshippers, the Shinto or the Druidic or whatever kind of tradition you're talking about, ultimately it will find its origins in Dattatreya. And of course, Jesus himself, this time of the year, this holiness of the Christmas season, the full moon in December is always Dattatreya's full moon. It's a very powerful full moon. This is not random. This is not accidental that we're talking about this energy at this time of the year when it is so strong. It's even said, you know, here in California, I don't know how it is in other places in the US, but right now Orion is always very strong in the sky around the December time. And the 3 stars in the belt of Orion are also said to be Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva, that they are a correlation with the Datta energy, which is very in the ascendant at this, always the dark time of the year. The big light is coming like that. This is the Jesus statue in Penukonda, for those who don't know. He's also behind me in my my background here on Zoom. Swami Kaleshwar constructed this Jesus temple in the early 2000s to have Dattatreya next to Jesus, next to his mother Mary. Pretty obvious statement about who and what is Jesus. So for us as human beings to understand that something of the Datta energy and how it is operating in our lives and how it's flowing in us as well as around us, teaching us, reflecting to us, but shifting the sands all the time so that we don't quite know where we stand with it in its unpredictable kind of careening along reflections to us. It's a really important aspect of spiritual consciousness. And even Swami Kaleshwar, he would say, well, you know, a judgment day, people talk about a final judgment when your soul leaves the body. He said there is a kind of judgment, and the judgment is, how well did you understand the Dattatreya energy? That your own consciousness wants to know. Interestingly enough, Dattatreya's yantra is the swastik, and we all know how mangled and misused and abused this symbol was under Germany's Adolf Hitler, who was a horrible black magician, very skilled black magician with a lot of very strong channels to the dark side, and part of that information was to use the swastik in a negative way. Whenever you do a yantra in black, it evokes the black magic capacity of that energy. But in its pure form, those 4 lines are like the cross. They relate to the sun, to the energy of the generating of this creation. And it's an ancient symbol. Obviously, it way predates Nazi Germany. This Shirdi Baba is shown with swastiks on his side, and actually this this was an illustration from a book on Baba that was banned in Germany because, the swastika in any form is banned there for obvious reasons. But you will see it all over Asia as a symbol on Buddhas because it is the symbol of Dattatreya. It is the energy structure of Datta. And this is a big shock, especially, let's say, for like modern Jewish people who are descended from Holocaust survivors. When they go to Asia and they see these Buddhas with a swastika, it's jarring. It's frightening. And yet we need to have it, I think, reset and reestablished in our planet in a proper way, in a divine way, in the recognition that this is part of Dattatreya, not what was misused and horribly distorted in the hands of a very, very skillful black magician. Datta himself with his 4 dogs and his beautiful cow, bringing the energy of the knowledge of this creation to all of us really sharply, really strongly. The Datta characters, I think I mentioned, they're a bit unpredictable because they're constantly cycling through these 3 forces: the generator, the operator, and the destroyer. Shirdi Baba was very hard to be around because one moment he was loving everybody, and then the next minute he's yelling and throwing things at them. And then in the next moment, he's like speaking incredible divine knowledge. Like, you don't know exactly where you stand with these Datta characters because they are in this constant flux and movement. And to the normal outside person looking in, they seem kind of psychiatric. It's also very important for us to recognize that Jesus Christ was very, very Datta and very unpredictable and very wild in ways that are generally not depicted in the Gospels. The only exception to that in the conventional Gospels are when Christ goes crazy on the temple money changers and pulls out a whip or grabs someone's bullwhip and is like whipping and throwing over the money changing tables and screaming at them, "How dare you make my Father's house a den of thieves?" I often wonder how in conventional Christianity, how people reconcile that wild figure with the guy who is the Prince of Peace. It is also a hallmark of the Datta characters that they suffer in the illusion of the mother very powerfully on behalf of humanity. And usually that means they pay it forward through their own physical suffering for generations of souls to wake up on the planet. So Jesus on the cross, for example, that's an incredibly Dattatreya situation that was a result of a deal he made with Mother Divine. He made a deal on behalf of humanity, and he said to her, "Mother, you can do whatever you want to my physical body. You can break it in any way you want, but I get what I want from you, which is the full range of your negativity and your positivity. I want the full information about you, Mother, so that I can give that to human beings in the coming generations." And Mother's response was, "Well, my son, I'd love to give that to you, but you can't handle it." And his response to her was, "Bring it on. I do whatever you want." So Christ literally paid it forward about 2,000 years for all of us now to receive the information and the consciousness levels and the miracle abilities, should we want to do the hard work to experience that, because of what he did on the cross. Shirdi Baba himself used to do all kinds of wild things to his own body, including cutting all his limbs off and putting them back on after some hours, and pulling his own intestines out and washing them in the river and then putting them all back in. This incredible physical suffering that the Datta saints go through is a major part of their contribution to the karmic washing and the balancing of our creation and all of us. It is their hallmark that they suffer to the illusion. They're experts in that because they know Mother so deeply, they really don't care what she will enact on them. They don't care. They don't care at all about the physical body. They're happy to go through it. They're totally willing. Datta, he also has a mate, Anaga Shakti, who is his Shakti, if you will. His real nature. Shirdi Baba with mother there, Mai Sasra Mardini Ma, a very fierce form of mother who's destroyed all the negativity, and by the time it's done, she's smiling, but she's still armed with all her weapons. So Datta and mother are inextricably bound. Sri Ramakrishna and Ma Kali, he was another great Dattatreya saint, another one who paid it forward through a cancer on the back of his neck, and very famously worshiping Kali to the point where she came alive to him. And then he was receiving all his information and his orders from her directly, and was quite open about that. He was one of the first saints who really talked about his relationship with the mother in the 1800s, and set the stage for all of us to wake up in the West in particular. It was Ramakrishna who sent his top student, Vivekananda, to the West for the first time to lecture about yoga and meditation and all like that, and to bring it to the West in the form of the Vedanta society centers. Swami Kaleshwar and Mother Mary. Swami himself was quite an expert on the mother. Every aspect of her, A through Z, he understood and taught his students very well how to understand the mother in a very wide range, let's say. We're kind of, I think, the beneficiaries of what Jesus sacrificed in order to bring the consciousness of the Dattareya and its understanding of how mother really operates, in order, again, to navigate through her illusion to bring the truth to people, which can look negative, or it can look in a way that confounds the mind because it doesn't make sense on a conventional level. And here's Swami in the Vatican in 2006, in front of Pieta, which he said was the most powerful thing in Vatican there. He was looking for the links. Does the Vatican have the reality of Jesus? Do they have the power there? If they know, why aren't they sharing it? And if they don't know, perhaps they should take a back seat and listen to the wisdom of the East on these subjects. But he was really struck by the Pieta, and he said, most powerful thing in Vatican, huge power object. Again, it's mother and Jesus, right? Swami himself in 2011, around Navaratri, the very high time of Mother Divine, installed this 9-foot statue of Mai Sasra Mardini, the fierce mother smiling after she's destroyed the negativity, as his gift to humanity. And he said, she will take care of you guys. I'm throwing you straight to her. It was his sort of parting gift. That was October of 2011, and by March of 2012, he took his samadhi. He left his body. So she's in the same building where his tomb is, and surrounded by all those powerful Shiva lingams with the different qualities of the energy, the Alahala lingam, the Amruta lingam, the Shiva cave lingam, and a few others, that made a network of Shiva's protection nets. His capacity to be the antidote to her illusion nature, before attracting her to come in a very pure way. It's a very Dattatreya mechanism to extract the reality from her only, without all her tricks and games and mayas and misdirections and attachments and diversions that she's capable of providing to human beings to keep us in the maya. Swami made it so that all the Shiva energy around her is like surrounding that place, so that when she finally comes there in her pure form, she's only giving the reality things. This ingenious technology, this very, very Dattatreya. How to put the brakes on mother so that she's not spinning more illusion. And he said, for the future students who come to Panakonda, if they walk around her 3 times and put their forehead to her feet are massive. They're like 1.5 feet long. They're gigantic because she's gigantic. Anyway, he said that's enlightenment on the spot. Done, finished. he made that deal with the mother. And Swami also, as a Dattatreya figure, he suffered pretty good physically in order to bring out the knowledge and in order to train so many thousands of students in the understanding of Dattatreya and in the understanding of the mother. And then finally having the benediction to put her there to kind of like preside over the future generations of people who will go to Penakonda and receive the enlightenment grace of the mother. This is him when they installed her, looking up at her like a child to the mother. Wow. Even such an expert miracle demonstrating, operating of the illusion expert is like a child to the mother. Just to give you an idea of how tall she is. When they make puja to her, it's when they have to dress her or bathe her, they have to climb up on ladders because she's really tall. Mother is mother to every soul in the universe. She does not belong to any religion. That's a very Dattatreya statement. My deeper aim is to send everyone to Mother. She will take care of you and give you what you really want. Her Sri Chakra. And that's the story of Dattatreya a little bit. Just to give you all some fragrance of who this character is and how important he is in our world. And again, so behind me is this is the Jesus temple in Penakonda that Swami Kaleshwar created back in the 2000s with a living statue of Jesus who has done many, many miracle healings and even bled from his heart there, 350 pounds of solid marble. Mother Mary on one side and Dattatreya on the other side. And Datta is, my prayer when I go there and I stand in front of Dattatreya is always let me hold on to your feet no matter what, no matter which way you shake me, no matter which way you throw me, no matter which way you test, no matter which way, whatever you bring in my life, just let me hold on to your feet. Don't ever let me let go of your feet, because he is the great navigator through the mother. And all of us owe so much to the Datta energy, probably without knowing it. It may be the first time you've ever heard of this figure called Dattatreya, and yet it's so central to everything that is spiritual on our planet. So I hope that helps give some interesting insights or something to everybody. And I'm so grateful to be here.
Alex, it was really amazing. And I know that we are all so excited as mystics that you shared this depth of your sacred knowledge. And also, obviously, for your commitment to the path, to Divine Mother, the great ones. And I love it that that's your prayer. We often speak about Yogananda, and his prayer was always, "Be thou with me always." And so I feel that all the beautiful images and all your sharing really sent us to Divine Mother.
Yes, but through a very particular angle, right? Through the Datta. You know, so many times people cannot make sense of their suffering in this world. And I feel like unless we have this component of understanding about Datta, it doesn't make any sense. You know, why? Why would that be there? Well, when you're going toward the full understanding of her, of necessity, it will entail some painful episodes. It will. It must. Otherwise, you only know one side of her. And she's everything. She made the lion and she made the lamb, you know? So it's really helpful, I think. At least I personally, my experience is understanding Datta is a big is a big component of understanding her.
It is. It's really amazing. And, today is the solstice. And so in my life, I meditated so much. And one day I was actually living in Germany and I was meditating for days and hours and sometimes weeks nonstop. And then suddenly the swastika appeared, but the correct way. And it was in like a higher realm and it was emanating light and it was spinning. It was spinning. And as it was spinning, all the light was coming out of it. And I really didn't know what to make of it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Isn't that, and you were in Germany, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
But it was obviously something super divine. So again, that was really wonderful to understand that.
Mm,
hmm
mm.
So this also, to me explains, Yogananda, for example, when he was experiencing physical pain, his students were saying to him, that's terrible, why are you in pain? And he said, say nothing. If you knew Divine Mother, you would do it for her too.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's totally it. Yes, and Yogananda, of course, is coming via Mahavtar Babaji and Lahiri Mayasha and all these extraordinary, they're all Datta characters, every
Mhm.
single one of them. Varying degrees, but they are all Datta characters.
Mhm.
Mahavtar Babaji, huge Datta character, obviously. So yes, and that's the funny part. The students often can't figure out why the master is suffering. Imagine, and I mean, just scope back 2,000 years ago and think about Jesus' students who in the Middle East who had varying levels of understanding about who and what he is. Imagine seeing him nailed to a cross. I mean, the depth of that horror. How can you reconcile that? What kind of a mother would wish that on her son, right? How could it be he's this top miracle avatar who can change anything? He could change the nails to flowers, but he goes through it anyway. Why? You know, how to wrestle with that from a human mind. Unenviable, difficult. And yet, that's the challenge that's placed to us again and again by the great ones. And yeah, Yogananda went through it. There was a period toward the latter part of his life where he couldn't stand up. His legs weren't functioning. It makes me wonder exactly what was he giving to the mother there in exchange for what he was doing for humanity. Swami Kaleshwar also said famously, well, Jesus had a rapid crucifixion, mine has been a slow one.
Mhm.
He was suffering in physical pain almost every day for majority of his life. Happy, happy to do it because he knew exactly what he was getting from the mother in exchange for that. Mm.
Fascinating, my love. Well, thank you. And thank you, everyone, for being here with us. And we will continue with our retreat tomorrow. And I will share this beautiful presentation through email and also at Alex's website so that you can connect with her. I recently just took a wonderful course with Alex. It was about Shakespeare and Yogananda and Shakti. It was fascinating to learn, that Yogananda was Shakespeare and Swami Kaleshwar was possibly Yogananda. Yeah,
Yes.
amazing. Thank
Yes.
you.
That was
Happy
a deep dive.
results. Deep dive. It was wonderful. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone.
So glad. Mm.
Many blessings. Thank you.
Bless you all.
Bye. Bless you
Mm.
all.